Have you ever written a song where you absolutely love the chorus, but for some reason the rest of the song just doesn't feel right? This is one of the most common issues I see with artists' songs. And the good news? It's surprisingly easy to fix. As soon as I learned this one trick, it instantly changed my songwriting, and I'm confident that it'll do exactly the same for you. Ever wondered why some songs capture your attention instantly while others fall flat? The answer is often contrast. Contrast is one of the most important factors in keeping your listener hooked from start to finish. And in this video, I'll break down why contrast matters so much in songwriting, show you the tools you already have to create it, and most importantly, teach you how to apply this technique to your songs today. Whether you're starting a fresh track or revising an old track, this will change the way you think about music forever. Let's start with why contrast is so crucial. Have you ever watched one of those food challenges where someone is challenged to eat an enormous plate of food in, say, 10 minutes? You're sitting there thinking, how on earth are they doing this? But every once in a while, you see a challenge and think, actually, I feel like I could do this one. It looks kind of easy. But the more and more that they progress, the less and less you feel like you could actually accomplish it. Because deep down, you know, if you actually sat down to do it, it would be brutal. And here's the thing, it's not just about the sheer quantity of food that makes it so daunting. It's the fact that it's all the same meal, the same flavors, the same textures, bite after bite. It gets overwhelming fast. But how do the pros get through it every time? Well, if you watch closely, they've got techniques. They have a variety of speed-saving tactics. They use sauces to switch up the flavors and sip something to break the monotony. They create variety to make it a manageable task. It keeps things fresh and stops them getting completely overwhelmed. And songwriting works in the same way. If every section of your song feels too similar, the listener tunes out. Even if your melody is great, their brain says, I've heard this, and they move on to the next track. But when you add variety, a mix of different melodic textures, rhythms, or dynamics, you keep the listener hooked. Without contrast, even the best melody can feel monotonous. But when you use contrast effectively, you're taking the listener on a journey, building tension, releasing it, surprising them, and making each section feel fresh and exciting. That's why contrast is one of the most powerful tools you have in your songwriting arsenal. So how do we actually create contrast in our songs? It comes down to the tools we already have as songwriters and how we use them. But before we dive in, here's an important thing that you have to remember. Contrast never happens in isolation. It only works when one element is compared to another. A melody might sound amazing on its own, but if it doesn't stand out from the sections around it, it won't engage the listener. So every tool that we're about to cover is about creating comparison. First, pitch. Compare high versus low. In Someone Like You by Adele, the verse sits lower in her vocal range, but as the chorus begins, her voice lifts into a higher pitch, creating an emotional intensity and making the chorus feel massive. Rhythm. Compare long, sustained notes versus short, snappy rhythms. Whether this is achieved by playing shorter staccato notes or longer legato notes, or it's the difference between your melodies being made up of fast notes versus long notes. And this is somewhat similar to phrasing. Compare dense or busy melodies versus spacious ones. Like in Bad Guy by Billie Eilish, the verses are minimal and sparse, leaving room for the rhythm to shine, while the pre-chorus adds slightly busier phrasing, creating a build-up before the super simple chorus. And then we have melodic direction. Compare ascending to descending melodies. If all of your melodies go down, they're all saying quite a similar thing. But music is a conversation, so we need both questions and answers written into our music. And the difference between a question and the difference between a question can often be quite subtle. The words are the same, but the melodic direction changes the entire meaning of the sentence. And one of my favorite techniques is the starting position of the entire section. Compare where each section begins. For example, in Rolling in the Deep by Adele, the verse starts directly on the beat, giving a sense of solidity to the story and truth, while the pre-chorus lags slightly behind, creating a more relaxed and unsure transition. Then the chorus comes in just before the downbeat, emphasizing its importance to the entire story and potentially the frustration of the singer. Another technique is repetition versus variation. Compare repeated ideas versus introducing new ones. Like in Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, the chorus chorus repeats a memorable motif. And that's again emphasized by the synth line in the post-hook as well as in the introduction of the song. And in some genres like dance music, repetition is not only acceptable, but also a defining feature. However, even in these genres where repetition is super important, subtle contrast in rhythm or phrasing can keep things engaging without losing the repetitive vibe, creating more of a trance rather than more of monotony. And lastly, you can think about performance. Compare different vocal styles or techniques. For example, in Olivia Rodrigo's Driver's License, the verses are soft and conversational, while the choruses explode with raw, belted power, making the transition feel deeply emotional. And this is exactly what professional songwriters like Ryan Tedder do instinctively. When they listen back to a track, they're not only hearing it, they're feeling it too. They identify where the song gets boring or where the energy dips, and they fix it by adding contrast. But the great thing is, you don't need 10,000 hours of experience or to be Ryan Tedder to start doing this for yourself. Just start asking your songs the same questions. Now that we know all the tools, let's talk about how you can apply them directly to your songs today. Whether you're starting fresh from a blank page or you're looking to improve a finished track, contrast is the tool that can take your song to the next level. Here's how to apply it, step by step. Step 1, listen critically. Play through your song and identify the sections where your energy dips or where you feel like it's missing something. Pay attention to the transition sections, like verse to pre-chorus or pre-chorus to chorus. Analyze the sections and ask yourself, what is this section doing? What's its purpose? How does it compare to the section before or after it? Do the melodies sound too similar? Identify what you want to improve and try and solve it by applying contrast. Use the tools that we've already discussed, like pitch, change it to a higher melody or lower register. Rhythm, adjust the phrasing to make it faster or slower. Phrasing, add more space or more density to the melody to balance the song. Performance, experiment with different vocal tones, such as switching between chest and head voice. And if you're not sure what to try, just ask yourself, what haven't I done yet in my melodies? Or what melody would be completely opposite to what I've just heard in the previous section? The pre-chorus to chorus transition in Aperture by Bruno Mars and Rose is an incredible example of this, when the contrast between sections is just so powerful. So whether you're in the initial writing phase or revisiting a finished track, the process is the same. Create, listen, analyze, adjust. Contrast is your tool for making a good song truly great. But in this video, we've only touched on creating contrast in your melodies. And there are, of course, so many other ways to create contrast in your music, such as tempo, arrangement, harmonic contrast, lyrical contrast, dynamics, textures, tonality, rhyme. So if you want to carry on leveling up your songwriting, just click here and I'll teach you an incredible technique for lyric writing in just a few minutes.